Alright, it's Tuesday again. Time to work on some combos. First start out, warm up, 5 minutes on the jump rope. So last week on Thursday, I was doing my heavy bag training. I filmed a few of the rounds, recorded the video, watched it after I was done, and it was very disappointing to say the least. I've been working on a specific concept. I find it's helpful when starting a heavy bag session to have a specific goal that I'm going to be working on, whether that's kicks, kick a specific combo, whether that's a specific set of combos, or an attribute such as power. Getting all cattywampus here. In this case, last Thursday, I was working on power, trying to lock in the kinetic chain from my hips to my hands, or from my feet to my hands. Because the previous week, I'd been working on combos, and when I watched my hooks, I realized I was throwing them from my shoulders, from my upper body. I didn't have as much hip engagement as I wish I had. So, dang, my shoulders are burned out from yesterday. Handstand push-ups. So that was 2 weeks ago. I had this the realization that my technique was not engaging my full body for the punches like I wish it would. So I set out to fix that by concentrating on driving and rotating from my feet, driving my hips into the hooks. Well, after watching the video, I realized I was generating a lot more strength in the punches, but they were slow. And I don't know that they were necessarily more powerful. Because, as I'm sure you know, power is a function of speed as much as it is of strength. If you think about strength as how much weight you can actually move, no matter how slowly, and speed as how fast you can get somewhere, regardless of how much weight you're moving, power is the combination of the two. It's a balance between moving a lot of strength, moving a lot of weight, and moving it really fast. Really powerful punchers are... You can be a powerful striker, even if you're very small body weight. Look at Bruce Lee. Generated tremendous amounts of power with a very, very small frame, because he was able to coordinate all of his muscles to fire simultaneously in a single technique. But he was still not as powerful as, say, Mike Tyson or any one of a number of other top-level heavyweight strikers. At the same level of coordination and skill, a stronger and heavier striker will hit harder because they have more mass to put behind the punch. That doesn't mean that if you're big and strong, you automatically hit hard. It just means you're big and strong. You have to train the muscles to fire in coordination. You have to train the striking technique in order to be able to harness that strength in an efficient manner. in the shadow boxing rounds. I'll show you what I mean. So this is what I saw myself doing on the video. I was throwing 1, 2, good hip movement. And then 3 was mostly shoulder. And 4, I'm just kind of stepping in and swinging like that. That was 2 weeks ago. Now the reason why is because I was going for speed. The attribute I was focusing on was speed. So if I'm only moving my hand, I don't have to move my hips. I don't have to coordinate all that. Obviously, my hand can move a lot faster on its own than I can move my whole body. At least it seems obvious. I don't think that it necessarily is. I think that that's a matter of my poor skill and low coordination. So I watched the video. I saw myself doing the, and I'm like, okay, that has to change. So next week, I was going to change that up. I'm going to go 1, 2, really get that hip into it. Really get that hip into it. Turn the foot over, turn the hip all the way. So watch the difference in speed. If I'm just throwing my shoulders and essentially just locking in my hips and using them as a stable platform for once to throw my hands, I can get them in very, very quickly. But what if I'm throwing my hips into it, the time between the right hook and the left hook extends out a few milliseconds. Very obvious when you watch it on the heavy bag because you can hear the boom, boom every time I hit. So now if I really put my hips into it, slows it down. So what I want to work on today is really increasing the speed at which I can turn over my hips. I've created this little doodad because I have a very limited space to train in, and I have a very small heavy bag. It only weighs 100 pounds. One of the reasons why my combos become really slow, especially when I throw kicks into the mix, is because I have to chase the heavy bag. I kick it, it flies out that way somewhere. I either have to go after it or wait for it to come back. I think I talked about this last week. The heavy bag moves from the bottom, not like a human being at all. No human being ever leaves their head in place and scoots their hips all the way back up in the air like this and then slowly brings them back. It never happens. So it's not a realistic movement pattern at all. I hate having to chase it. So put a hook in the wall in the post over here and wrapped it around the post over here, and hopefully that'll keep this bag in place for combos. So that's mostly what I want to work on today is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and with emphasis on the 3, 4. So I'm trying to get that as fast as I possibly can to generate the torque with my upper body strikes. But I want to do that without getting sloppy with it. So I'm going to start out nice and slow for this next minute 45. Now talk a word about ranging that hook punch. The hook, because it's coming out from the side, is a shorter punch than a jab. So there's my jab, maximum reach on that. Here's my hook. That's about the maximum reach I can get on that. So if I'm going to follow that jab up with a hook, I have to change my angle where I either use the jab at shorter than its maximum distance, or I change my distance between the two punches. And that, I think, is what the number 2 punch, the cross, is for in a lot of combos. So, coming in with that jab, striking that at maximum distance, then I follow that, turning my hip over, firing that cross into the opponent's block. And as I'm doing that, I'm shifting my hips closer. And then I can subtly bring this first foot even just a little bit closer. And now I'm right in hooking range. So I'm going to work that kind of little shuffle footwork here with it too. That's something else I'm doing. I'm noticing when I finish that left hook, I'm just kind of dropping and swinging back in. There's I think a little artifact with the bag on that, is that if I actually connect with that left hook on somebody's head, or even on somebody's guard, it's not going to just stop. The bag is now fixed at the top and the bottom. I don't care if you're Mike Tyson, you're not going to just punch right through that. You're not going to move the bag significantly out of the way. It's stronger than any human. This is 8mm climbing cordage. It's rated at, I think, 10 kilonewtons or something like that. Something insane. Same thing with the bolts on the ceiling. You're not ripping those out. Whereas even a relatively untrained fighter, if they get that wild haymaker in there and they hit you in the side of the head, their fist is going to keep going and your head is going to move out of the way. Now, they may damage their fist in the process, but your head is going to move. So when I'm hitting the heavy bag that doesn't move out of the way, I have to have a way to simulate following through, and that's coming across and kind of turning the bag and then bringing the fist across like this. And then I have to reset like that. Point is that I need to not drop the punch. I need to bring it up to here. Bring it across like that. All right, so we'll focus on that in this next round of combos. And that's the warm-up session. Now let me switch it over to my round timer. I'm going to do 60-30s. 60-second rounds with 30-minute rests, or 30-second rests. All right. That one I think had more power, less speed. Let's try it again. So I'm closing the range too early and choking off that cross. Shuffle. What do I mean by choking off the cross? I mean that I'm not throwing the cross at the maximum effective range. I'm too close to get it out there effectively. That doesn't mean you don't throw it. It does mean that there's a tension, there's a temptation to throw the jab and kind of short stroke it, where you're not actually really fully engaging the shoulder or the hips.
Ready?
And then across, I don't think should ever be a distraction technique. There's too much power behind it. So here's another thing that I'm noticing. I've seen some guys, some kickboxers do this. I'm getting, as I'm throwing them faster and faster, I'm getting into a tendency to throw my left hook over the top like this. And more of a looping overhand punch rather than a true hook. Now, like I've said, I've seen a lot of kickboxers and MMA guys do it like that in some of the gyms I've trained at. And I think there's an application for it. If you think about somebody coming over, so you think of somebody standing here with their elbows up, kept blocking this first hook, and I'm trying to get in over their shoulder and hit the top of their jaw. That kind of makes sense. The angle. Is it a true hook? No. The other thing that it's tempting me to do is not really engage that hip into the movement, not get the full serape effect. The serape effect meaning the rotational movement of any given shoulder, of either shoulder, in the direction of the opposite hip.
Ready?
I was talking too much in that round. If you listen to the cadence, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, da 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 da. That was sloppy. There's still a difference in the cadence between the straight punches and the hooks. And I don't know, that might be unavoidable, but I'm going to try and shorten that up. So instead of da-da-da-da, I want to go da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Ready?
That was clumsy. Might have to treat this like an El Pres drill. El Presidente, it's a pistol drill. So the El Pres drill, El Presidente, is a rhythm drill. You're shooting a pistol, and you have 3 targets. You present on the first target, you go 1 round, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the goal is to have
Ready?
the trigger squeezes on the target have the same cadence as the trigger squeezes when you're transitioning from target to target. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. cadence, I can't quite get the cadence the same. All right, let's take the 1-2. Oh, we'll try that for the full round, and then we'll change it up. All right, so maybe a little closer there. Let's change it up for the next round. Take the 1-2 out of the mix. Just slip in 3-4. This is, this I think of as kind of a blindside drill. So you turn around to the bar and somebody's already swinging for your head, and all you can do is just kind of duck underneath it. Well, as you're ducking and covering, you want to be coming up with that counterattack immediately. So, duck, duck. Once again, my shoulders were turned this way when I threw the hook, and I just looped it around. It was all chest and shoulders. All right. That, I think, needs work. So we're just going to run that one again. Duck and cover, slip, hook, hook.
Ready?
We'll simulate closing the distance too, I think. Distance, duck, cover, duck, cover, and maybe not quite so much distance. There we go, that was a little more like it, I think. Now, I am straight pushing with that left arm. I'm getting no, well, not no, but very little torque. So there's the issue. So the issue is starting to lose technique in my left hand because my accuracy is going down. When my accuracy goes down, that means that my fist is not exactly flat on the bag when it hits. It's actually hitting a little off to one side and torquing my wrist, which my body doesn't like. So it's deliberate, well, deliberately. I think it's subconsciously taking some of the power out of that punch. There we go. So what I did to switch up that time was to turn it into a recovery drill. So right by that, I mean using the left hook as a recovery from the right hook. So you start at the position that your last technique would end in. So let's say the other one I'll use it for is the number 2 punch. So I'll start
Ready?
in the extended number 1 position. The jab is all the way out there. Just fire it down the center there. And just concentrate on and what this translates out to is kind of focusing on what the strong position at the end of that number 1 is, and that strong body position to throw that number 2 from. So I'm not just flicking a jab out there, kind of flicking it out there as a preparation for that number 2. I'm actually throwing that jab like I mean it. Same thing with that hook. I don't want to just be like, and then I'll throw that. This isn't a fake technique. It's not a throwaway. I actually want it to knock him out if he's not covering properly. So starting from that good strong hook position, throwing a full left hook. All right. One more round of this.
Ready?
So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to throw from the cover. So cover, we're talking like this is straight up somebody's just mashing a haymaker into my face. That's starting to feel like something. Anyways, I'll have to watch the video. I'll have to watch the video later and see what it actually looks like. All right, that's the warm up and the first round of 10 combos. All of them the same, all of them working on the same thing. We'll take a look at the video and come back later and next week and see what we can improve on.